all these different generative AI code development tools really are good at developing micro apps for you. Same goes for Sonnet 3.5, Claude, and goes for Spark as well. Maybe in the future, they can be better environments, but the way GitHub Spark does it differently is that it has a platform on which these code bases sit, which could be shared. So that docking is already happening inside GitHub itself, and that's really good.
One of the biggest challenges in the tech industry has been making software development more accessible to those without coding experience. As more businesses and individuals seek custom solutions for their very unique needs, the demand for accessible tools that bridge the gap between ideas and functional software has only grown. There's a new tool on the market from GitHub called Spark, which lets users create web apps simply by describing them in plain English. And Raj, I've got some personal experience, not with Spark, but trying to do some coding in other generative AI, and maybe we can dive into that just now because it might provide a little bit more context. But let's get your initial thoughts on Spark first.
Well, let's kind of like just go back again in time, where when we're building the AI models, we're talking to ourselves and saying that, well, we're gonna use AI primarily to replace blue collar workers and their roles. As it happens, as we've seeing more and more so now, it's all about the white collar jobs, which are being impacted majorly. At this point in time, it augments the opportunity for white collar workers. Today, with GitHub Spark, we're seeing how developers can really up their game. But really, I'm not too sure if it really is upping their game only, but also people who are enthusiasts. So GitHub Spark is not available as such to the users unless you are part of the alpha beta testing. But from what I've seen on YouTube and through other sources, it's really interesting. You can enter stuff in plain English and it will develop micro apps for you. And that is impressive because for the longest time, development has been a costly, painful experience for product managers, for developers themselves, for non-coders, founders, CTOs, CFOs, everybody's complaining about development, right? And now suddenly you can build stuff and actually not only build stuff to like satisfy your itch to kind of do something, actually does a very good job at it. The demos I've been seeing are really impressive. So good to see that there is a lot of this coming out after what Claude released with their Sonnet 3.5. This is a really strong move by GitHub.
Yeah. Now, let's just dive into Spark a little bit because you've mentioned micro apps, and I believe that those are kind of for your everyday tasks. What kind of application or industries do you think will benefit from this approach the most? Are we going to see like a major shift in how businesses address custom software needs, or are we not there yet? Maybe you could just let us know kind of what are micro apps. That's probably going to explain or answer both questions.
Yeah, so the way I think of micro apps is effectively app which you can build into the interface of a phone. For example, if you could click on calculator, that could be thought of it as a micro app because it functions on its own. A timer function that's functions on its own. When you look at the long tail opportunities of software development in B2B or B2C in businesses, for example, that requires much more sophistication. You require to have integration with other systems in the company. This is not for that at this point in time. Yes, you could build in some sort of integration with your other apps, but primarily it's for smaller apps which function very well independently. So, for example, you want to build a calculator, a timer. You want to build in, for example, a recording app which can record your voice for the purpose of a podcast, for example. These are all act independently and they can work on their own silos. That's the way I think of micro apps. And actually, what you can do with the micro apps is pretty powerful. At this point in time, we either pay for them or we search for them. We get the app, doesn't really fit our purpose, and we moan and crib about it. But going forward, you can just build your own app. You don't like the calculator you see, all right, build your own one, and then you can use that on your phone or your tablet or your PC.
Yeah, yeah. Where do you think this is going? And maybe I'm going to just dive in here with and give you a bit of background on something that I've been doing on the back end of my business. I've got a client that I need to monitor like a million different keywords and keep on top of thousands of different trends. Because they're an umbrella company, they've got so many different arms. And so in order to produce content, I need to keep track of all of this. So it started out as just a little kind of Google alerts thing that was coming through. But because there are so many, I needed to kind of find a way to condense this down, summarize, find what was relevant. And I went on a kind of deep dive into ChatGPT. I started off coding something on the back end of a Google Excel spreadsheet, Google Sheets, in Java. Then it took me down the road to Python, and I'm playing around in PyCharm at the moment. But essentially, what my point is that me as having, well, I have like minuscule coding that dates back to like 1998 and high school days. But essentially, for the purposes of this, I'm a non-coder. What I'm finding is that even using these generative tools to create something that I see as pretty custom and trying to tailor it down, I lack a lot of the understanding of how these things function on the back end. So, in terms of Java plugins into Python with API links, etc., etc., it's been really task heavy for me to develop this thing. So looking at Spark, obviously micro apps are a lot easier to describe in plain English, but obviously they've started developing this to go in the direction of developing more complicated software. How is this actually helping non-developers? Because me as a non-developer, non-coder, it hasn't been easy even describing the thing in plain English.
It's a great question. Actually, the answer is that it's not as straightforward for non-developers to use these tools effectively if it's a bigger application. The reality is these bits of code generation really help developers to write code which is code written for a part of a bigger piece of a puzzle. Say, for example, looking to write one function within a programming language. Now, before you do like hand code everything, but you can just say describe it, it'll create for you. Then as a developer, you then do some debugging, and then boom, that's done. The bit where we require developers today is twofold. One is to check to have the right prompt to develop the right kind of output from the AI. Number two is to check the code and perhaps some debugging as well required. And then finally, integration. You build that code and integrate it to the biggest system you have. And that requires experience and that requires a lot of work. This is why building a cumbersome big app is very challenging for AI because there are a lot of integrations required with different environments, which is not easy to actually do, which is always done manually usually. There are some compilers who can do that work for you, but the reality is it is a very manual task. And people who know it, they can do it quickly. People who don't struggle with it. So the answer really is all these different generative AI code development tools really are good at developing micro apps for you. Same goes for Sonnet 3.5, Claude, and goes for Spark as well. Maybe in the future they can be better environments, but the way GitHub Spark does it differently is that it has a platform on which these code bases sit, which could be shared. So that docking is already happening inside GitHub itself, and that's really good. So you don't have to compile this code again and then install it somewhere else. You have GitHub as the environment where all these apps sit for you. So non-developer, that's definitely one thing less to do.
Yeah, yeah. Let's continue on this kind of train of thought right now. What kind of challenges do you think could arise from relying on AI to generate code? And this is something that I've had quite a lot of experience in the last couple of months, playing around with this. The code is bloated. It loses track of what it's doing. You get all kinds of weird bugs and errors. What are the risks related to code quality, security, and just the general skill gap between users and experienced developers?
Absolutely. I mean, this is a challenge right now. The code will be bloated because the code has not been purpose built really. It has been used using different knowledge it has from before. And security is definitely an issue as well because obviously, as a non-developer, there will be challenges which are gaps or non-fixes which have not been done yet. So there will have to be some sort of a audit required to audit the entire code to see if there are any security challenges in the big platform you built for yourself, the non-developer. And that's very, very annoying because in today's age, you would just want to have one, click a button and you get it all fixed. It's not there yet, but I do have a lot of hope with things like O1 by ChatGPT, where you have a much stronger model to look at challenges in the code and fix them for you. So eventually we will have a platform to do the coding for us, and they will be a more secure and less bloated version of the software. But for now, we're relying on sort of early stage of these AI tools and AI models, and they will build you the things. It'll perform okay for you, but there are improvement opportunities there, and that requires a developer to get in and fix those problems for you. So for the time being, watch the space, but it's coming. I mean, it's coming in a big way because from where we were 2 years back to where we are today, it's already a massive, massive opportunity to cut costs and be more efficient.
Yeah, yeah. Currently, we're at, if I can use an analogy, I like music, but I hate having to practice an instrument. I want to just sit down at the piano and play. Currently, we're still at the point where you have to still practice. We're not at the point where the piano automatically plays for you.
Well, saying that, if you look at the music industry, they are really challenged by the sites like Suno and Udio, where they actually don't even touch the piano. Now they have the whole songs ready for them with the instruments as well as the lyrics, right? So looking at that analogy, that's been already done at a very high level. But in other areas, it's still being worked on. So give it time with enough training data, we will get there.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome. That's a wrap on this episode. We want to hear from you. What do you think? Will tools like Spark make coding skills less essential, or is there still a place for traditional development? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Please leave a comment on the YouTube channel. And obviously, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow, subscribe to the podcast, wherever you're watching or listening to this right now. And we'll have more discussions on the latest tech innovations in the future. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode.